Hello, everyone, and welcome to UCF Housing's Incoming Freshman Livestream. We are so excited to have you all here and are looking forward to answering some questions that you may have for our process for living on campus here at UCF. My name is Hallie Harriet, and I am the Marketing Manager for the Department of Housing and Residence Life. Today, we are going to go through a presentation that will cover our housing options, the application process, including roommate matching and room selection, our move-in process, and resources for finding off-campus housing if needed. At the end of the presentation, we will have a live Q&A session. So throughout the presentation, please insert your questions that you might have in the comments, and we will do our best to answer as many as possible. So I am joined today by some of my amazing colleagues who are all dedicated to helping students through this process and are all experts in their areas. Today you'll be hearing from Gordon Adams, who is the Associate Director of Mail, Conferences, and Marketing. Myself, again, Marketing Manager here at the Department of Housing and Residence Life. We have Meredith Varner, who's the Associate Director of Housing Administration. And lastly, we have Jennifer Fosel, who is the Assistant Director of Housing Administration. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, so you will be able to access this entire live stream again on our UCF Housing YouTube channel. And to get started, I'm going to pass it along to Gordon, who is going to give an overview of our housing options.
All right. Thank you, Hallie, and welcome. We're so glad that you're able to join us, and hopefully this information will be helpful for you. So to get started, we have 8 different choices of housing communities that are affiliated and very close to our main campus. What you will find is a blend of 2 different things and 2 different types of agreements. And that's really the most important, especially at this stage when you are making your application. So we have the academic side of the house, which means an academic agreement or an annual agreement. And the way that that's broken down is the academic agreement goes from August all the way through May. So your fall semester to your spring semester, that's considered the academic year. And any of those housing communities would be called in an academic agreement community. Then we have our annual agreement. Those communities start also in August. They go all the way through May, but they continue on through the summer. So technically it's really from August all the way to August. And it's like, we call it like an 11.5 month because we do pause just for a moment in between, but that's the difference, academic agreement and annual agreement. We have 2 locations. We have our main campus, which is the heart of UCF, and that's where most of our students are, but we also have our Rosen College, and that's located near Universal Studios, SeaWorld, because it's designed specifically to be in the heart of our hospitality area because it's our School of Hospitality Management. So let's go ahead and go to our next slide. So again, as I was prefacing, our academic application, these are the communities that would fall into that agreement. So we would have our Apollo community, our Libra community, Hercules and Nike, And sometimes people get confused thinking that that's one community in of itself. It's that I like to think of them as like maybe brother and sister, or maybe they're two brothers. I don't know. The fact is that they're almost identical. So you'll always see them referenced like Hercules and Nike, because if you've seen one, you'll know exactly what the other option looks like. The next would be our Lake Claire Apartments, and then our Neptune community. All of those 6 communities are what we consider to be in our academic agreement, and that's the type of a space that you'll see when you apply for that application. The next would be our annual application, and that annual agreement will be our towers. So we have Tower 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are located next to the Edition Arena. And then we have Northview, which is just off of campus, right past the Bounce House. Some of you have probably heard of that. Some of you may have even heard some of the noise from the Bounce House, where the Knights play football, and our soccer pitches nearby there. Northview and Towers, those are our traditional annual application, annual agreement communities. Then we have a hybrid, which is Rosen. Rosen is kind of like the best of both worlds in the fact that it can be whatever it is you need it to be. Because of the hospitality industry and a number of our students that attend there, they'll need the flexibility to be able to work internships, and sometimes that will take them over through the summertime, and they might not know that in the very beginning of the fall. So that gives you the opportunity to potentially change your mind and or add on summer afterwards. So it can be an academic community, as well as it can be an annual agreement. So that one is a little bit tricky, but it gives you the best of both worlds if you happen to be interested in being in that location of town and you're a hospitality major. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so looking at our academic application, again, as you see to the far left here, we've got Apollo, Libra, Nike, Hercules, Neptune, and Lake Claire. Now the question ends up being, it's like, what do those rooms look like? So first off, you'll see with our academic application, the only place that we're going to have the apartments for an academic year would be either in Lake Claire, or Nike and Hercules actually have some specific apartments, which means they are individual bedrooms that also have a formal living room, a kitchen, and it has that feel of like an apartment. And now Neptune is unique in the fact that it is suite style, and everyone has their individual bedroom. So it's almost like an apartment, but there is no kitchen feature to it. So, and then as you look at Libra and Apollo, Nike and Hercules, the most of those spaces there are going to be just shared spaces. So as you can see in the diagram, you can see where there are 2 beds. I know it might be hard depending on if you're looking on your phone or on a tablet, but you can also go back to our website and take a look. And maybe the next slide will actually see a bigger breakout. But there are 2 beds in there, so there's 2 students that are inside that room. It's a shared room, and generally what will happen is that this suite that you'll see really in Apollo and in Libra, Nike, and Hercules, there will be 2 bedrooms, 2 students in each bedroom, and then they'll share a bathroom. So it's basically a 4-to-1. And then in Apollo, we also have some options where it could be 5 individuals, and they'll end up sharing that one restroom. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next slide. So if you look at this diagram, this is an example of the towers at Knights Plaza, and you can probably distinctly see that there are 4 distinct private bedrooms. In the very center there, you can see that there's a living room, and then at the bottom you can see a little kitchen table, dinette, and then there's a kitchen there. So it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. There are study lounges on every floor. There are full kitchens with dishwashers, and there's some exclusive resident-only events that happen there. Private garage parking. The honors program, the Honors LLC, is in Tower 3. However, for those of you that are going to be joining the honors program, you don't have to live in Towers. You can live anywhere on campus, but that is where the Honors LLC is. And at Knights Plaza, as I've mentioned before, this is close to the Bounce House. It's close to the Edition Arena, right close to Memory Mall, Nitro's Dining Hall, and much, much more. So Northview is just beautiful. It's right across the street from UCF's main campus. Can you walk there? You still can, but it's going to take a little bit longer. It is first-class amenities. It has a resort-style pool, fitness center. For those of you that are looking at this with your students, or you're going to show your students this later on, I can tell you this is not the residence hall that you grew up with. You'll see the granite countertops and the sky deck, the game room, the exclusive parking garage, along with those shuttles to campus, washer and dryer in each unit. And of course, just like any of our residence halls or apartments, all utilities are included. And then also we have Hillel and Catholic campus ministries that are right on site inside of Northview. Now, again, this is just adjacent to campus. So if you were going to be living there, or your student was going to live there, they would definitely want to have some means of which of transportation, or depend on that shuttle, because it could probably take them maybe an additional 10 to 15 minutes to get onto the main campus. Now, the Rosen College apartments, these are 4-bedroom, 2-bath apartments. And as you can see through the diagram here, they have private bedrooms, full kitchen, living room, and there are individual leases for each student. So it's not as if you have to come in with, I need 3 other people in order to be a part of this apartment. You can do that if you do roommate matching, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But as an individual, it's an individual lease. So you're just needing 1 bedroom inside of this 4-bedroom, 2-bath. We'll match them up perfectly for you if you don't go in and select your own room. But we hope that you will, and we'll get to that in just a moment. There's also a community pool here. There's an on-campus library and a bookstore, and it really is the best of both worlds. If you haven't actually seen it, I mean, UCF is around 70,000 students, but the Rosen campus is around 3,500. So you kind of have that small school feel, but you also have the benefit of a powerhouse of a university with all of the amenities and resources that come along with it. So it's definitely worth the trip to check it out.
All right, Gordon, you've convinced me I want to live on campus. When can I apply? Hi, y'all. Thanks for joining us. My name is Meredith, and I'm really excited to be talking with you today. So when can you apply for campus? Housing. You have to be accepted into UCF before you can apply for housing. So you do need to have received that acceptance to UCF. However, you do not have to commit to UCF, i.e. pay your enrollment deposit to UCF admissions in order to apply for housing. So that is an important distinction to note. You do have to make that enrollment deposit by May 1st in order to keep your housing application active. But if you are still trying to decide among different universities, obviously UCF is going to be the best one. But if you were trying to make other choices, you can still apply for housing prior to committing to UCF completely. However, you do have to make that commitment by May 1 to keep that housing application active. We do suggest applying for housing as early as possible to give you the best chance of being confirmed for housing. We don't have enough housing for everyone who would like to live on campus, even for our incoming freshmen. We do reserve the most amount of beds for our incoming freshmen. However, we do run out of space each year, and so we do want you to be aware of that. Our applications for summer and fall are open now. We do have some incoming freshmen who are admitted for summer B 2024 and some who are admitted for fall. It's very important to note that our summer B incoming freshmen will apply for housing in the summer and also in the fall. So if you are an incoming freshman for summer who also wants to live on campus for the fall, make sure that you're completing both of those applications. That is super important. If you're an incoming freshman who is admitted for fall, then you would complete that fall application. And we can go ahead and talk a little bit more about how that application process works. If we can move on to the next slide, that'd be great. Fantastic. So our application is in our housing portal, and you get to the housing portal through MyUCF. So what you're going to do is log into MyUCF, and then you're going to navigate to Student Self-Service, Housing, and then click into the housing portal. Once you're in the housing portal, you'll see a little welcome message and a gold bar at the top that has an application link in it. You're going to click into that application link. Now, my best advice to you throughout this whole process is to read. read all of the information that is presented to you in the housing portal. If you as the student are going through and doing this, it may be helpful to have your parent or family member who is helping you with this sit down and read it with you so that everyone understands what is happening. The process is well described throughout the application, but it is important to read that information. So as you get into the housing application, you're going to read some important information. You're going to select what semester you're applying for and what campus. So as Gordon described before, we have our main campus housing and we have our Rosen campus housing. So you're going to make that choice. And then you'll select the length of agreement that you want. So you'll either choose main campus or Rosen campus. And then from there, you'll choose your academic year agreement or an annual agreement in Towers or an annual agreement in Northview. So it's important to make sure that you know what you want to apply for. The portal will give you an additional description of what it is that you're applying for so that you can make sure that you've clicked on the item that you want. If you want something different, you can go back and fix it. Once you proceed through that process, it is sort of locked in. And if you want a change past that point, you will have to contact our staff to have that changed on the back end. You'll create your roommate matching profile and enter that information. There are some questions on there that you'll answer to help you roommate match later on. If you aren't quite sure, maybe you're not ready to answer those questions or you don't know exactly what you want to put, go ahead and put something and you can always come back and change it later. So that is important to know. So you can always change those roommate matching questions later on. You'll sign the terms and conditions for the housing agreement, meaning that you're going to agree to pay your bills, you're going to follow our rules, you're going to read through that. That is done in DocuSign. So if you've ever signed anything else online, that'll be somewhat of a familiar process for you. We're going to ask you to initial through several points in the terms and conditions. We want you to read all of it, but those are the points that most typically come up where somebody maybe said, I didn't realize I agreed to that. So we want you to read over that and be intentional with looking at that information. So you sign those terms and conditions, you submit your prepayment. That prepayment is applied to the first semester's rent. So if you are applying for summer, that will be $100 for that housing application. If you're applying for fall, that would be $250. And again, that is applied to the rent. It's not a deposit that disappears. And then you want to make sure you click through all the way to see that the status of your application is submitted. Once we receive those submitted applications, about once a week, we run a process to confirm those applications to let folks know that they will receive a space in the application for which they applied. So that information is done on a rolling basis, and you receive an email from us when that happens, and you will also be able to see that status updated in the portal. All right, so let's dig in a little bit more on that prepayment that I referenced. Your application does have to have a prepayment in order to be considered submitted. One quick caveat to this is if you have a Florida prepaid dormitory plan, you may enter that information in lieu of the prepayment, and we will bill that prepayment to Florida prepaid dorm. However, you can only bill one housing prepayment or deposit from one university to your Florida prepaid dormitory plan. So if you are utilizing that plan to apply for multiple different housing programs, you want to just be cognizant of the fact that you can only pay one deposit or one prepayment with that Florida prepaid dorm plan. For more questions about that, definitely contact us and we can walk you through that. However, most students will pay that prepayment out of pocket. As I said before, it is not a deposit. It doesn't just disappear into a black hole. It is credited towards your payment for that first semester of that housing agreement. The housing rent is due at the same time tuition is due, which is typically the second Friday of each semester. We are not going to go too far into housing payments here, but it is important to know that if you have financial aid that will cover your tuition and your housing payment, then your payment is deferred until that financial aid comes through. The summer prepayment, you know what? I think I see a little typo here. The summer prepayment is $100. It is non-refundable. So once you make that prepayment, it is non-refundable, but when you do move on to campus for Summer B, that $100 is applied to your Summer B housing. The $250 prepayment for fall, $150 of it is refundable if you cancel with us before May 1st. So if you are making other decisions and you have other choices maybe going on, you can go ahead and get your fall housing application in. And if you did cancel it prior to May 1, you would receive $150 back. Past that May 1 point, the cancellation fee goes up to $250, and then in mid-July, it raises again to $1,000. So those are some important sort of milestones to be aware of as you're going throughout your selection process. All right, so let's talk about that completed application. You want to make sure that you click all the way through the process and see that your application status is submitted. You can see here a screenshot of the housing portal and what that looks like when your application is submitted. And so it says here that it's submitted. You definitely don't want to navigate away as soon as you finish the payment. You want to make sure you get back into the portal and complete the process entirely. All right. So that's exciting. You've chosen what type of housing you would like. You've applied for it. You've been confirmed for housing, meaning that we've let you know that you will have a space. In February here, roommate matching will open up for students with confirmed agreements. So you'll be able to go into the housing portal once that's open and search for roommates. You're going to use those profile questions that you answered before. And again, you can alter those if you've made different decisions about maybe you're getting up a little later or a little earlier. These roommate matching questions are ones that relate to things where we've typically seen roommate conflicts happen. So we're not going to ask you what is your vision for world peace or what do you feel about politics or who are you voting for or what music do you listen to. It's about when do you get up? When do you go to bed? Do you like to leave the room clean? Do you like a little bit of mess? Do you wash the dishes immediately or do you leave them in the sink? Do you like the room cool or warm? And so those are the types of things that really can be helpful in a roommate relationship in terms of the living space. So make sure that you answer those honestly. And for our parents watching, definitely you want to make sure that the student is filling these out with the attributes that apply to them and not you. So just a little pro tip there. We're looking for a roommate for your student. So definitely be aware of that. The roommate matching module in the portal will only let you match with people of your same gender and who have your same type of housing agreement. So if you have applied for towers and you identify as a woman, you are only going to match with other women who have applied for towers. So you're not going to accidentally find the perfect match and then find out they're going to be living at Rosen while you're living at the towers. You cannot pull in other students from other types of agreements or from waitlists, only can match with students of that same agreement type who have also been confirmed. So that's really important to note. You'll be able to create a roommate group and you can put up to 4 people in that group. So you can reach out and find people that you want to match with. You can message them within the housing portal. And typically from there, we see that students will exchange contact information and perhaps take that conversation to DMs on social media or text messages rather than messaging back and forth in the portal. But you can reach out to folks before exchanging any personal information to see if you might be a good match. So we really want to empower you to utilize this feature to find roommates with whom you think you would like to live. And then, if you meet someone and you really like them, but it's not going to work out to live together, you can also still be friends. So great way to find people there as well. All that being said, you do not have to do roommate matching. If you choose not to do that, you can just go through room selection and pick a room on your own, and the additional spaces in that room will be filled with other folks. So it's not a requirement, but it is something that we want to encourage you to do if you're able to, because it can be really helpful for your roommate situation. We try our best to make as much space available for those groups of 2, 3, and 4. However, occasionally it is possible that space for an entire roommate group is not available during room selection. Occasionally those groups do have to split up. So that's kind of the long and the short of roommate matching. Happy to answer more questions about that if folks have it, but it is a really helpful process to use within our housing portal. And again, that will open in February for our freshmen coming in for summer B and for fall. All right, room selection. So this is a really exciting time. Our room selection for summer B will take place in May, and our room selection for fall will take place in June. This is done all online, just like the roommate matching, so that will be done through the housing portal. You will get some information about when your room selection appointment date and time will be. The date and time of your roommate selection appointment is based on when you completed your housing agreement. So the earlier you complete your housing application, the earlier your room selection appointment time will be. Let's say I have a group of 4 and I've got my 4 roommates. One of my roommate group members can choose a room for all 4 of us. So if I have the earliest time, then I may want to go in and select that room for everyone in the roommate group. There is the concept within the room selection or roommate matching of the group leader. That is the person who has the ability to form and dissolve the roommate group, but that does not have to be the person who chooses the room. So anyone in the group can go in and choose the space. At the time that you go through room selection, any rooms that are available will be shown to you. We don't hold out rooms for later appointments or anything like that. It is just put out there. What's available is what's available. So once a person in a group chooses a room for that group, then everyone in a group will get a notification. So for example, if I've decided and my group has decided we really want to live in Apollo, we would be able to go in and filter down to rooms available in Apollo, see what spaces are available for a group of 4. And then I was, for example, assigning everyone, I would go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to put myself in room A and put my bestie in room B, and then put our 3rd roommate in room C and the 4th roommate in room D, and so forth, so that you assign each space to each person. It's important to know that typically within our academic application, those private space, private room communities like Lake Claire and Neptune tend to go first. So what we recommend for our students in the academic year application is go ahead and have a plan of like, here's our first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice. If we're not able to get these choices, what do we do? So kind of have like a triaged option. Don't set your heart on any one particular thing and say, this is the only thing I can live in. All of our housing is really great. And so I would encourage you that students have a great experience in all of our different housing communities. So definitely take a look at that and be in communication with your group about what would be what would be best, and then second best, third best, and so forth, so that you can have some ideas for that. All right. So then once you've selected your room, you get to go to your move-in appointment, and I will pass it over to Jennifer to talk about that.
Jennifer, I believe you're muted.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm an assistant director here in Housing and Residence Life, and I was on mute, so I do apologize. But we get through the application, you're able to select your roommates, you selected your room, and now it's time to actually prepare to move in. And so one of the things that we have here to help organize this structure a little bit is a move-in appointment. And so once you've completed all the things you need to complete and you've completed your application, you've been assigned your room, you know exactly where you're supposed to be going, you're going to complete a move-in appointment that'll state the day and time that you plan to arrive to campus. It does not need to be the same time that you arrive with all of your roommates. You do not need to coordinate with everyone else. You just need to coordinate with yourself and whoever your moving helpers are, whether that's your friends, families, loved ones, whomever that might be. So we give you the opportunity to select your move-in appointment time. You do have the opportunity to change that move-in appointment time if you need to. It's really just for us to be able to better plan for staffing so we can anticipate the number of students who are all going to be arriving around that time. There also is a bit of a limit when it comes to how many students can apply, or I should say, how many students can select a move-in appointment. And it's really to limit how many students are all showing up at the same time. So those move-in appointments are 15 minutes long. It's set in 15-minute blocks with a certain number of students ideally showing up during that time. This does not mean that you only have 15 minutes to move into your space. That is extremely unrealistic, so please don't think that that's the case. That is really just a matter of hopefully having you arrive within that time frame or within that window. And then that allows us and our community offices to anticipate how many students are going to be arriving, get their key packets prepared, and hopefully get their access set and ready to go. So we ask that you try to arrive as close to the move-in appointment time as possible, but we also recognize traffic happens, emergencies can happen, and or weather. You know, Florida does love a good hurricane and or thunderstorm or even just light rain. And so we do try to plan for that as well. So if you anticipate that you might be coming a little bit later than your move-in appointment time, that's also totally fine. You can just send an email to our housing@ucf.edu email address and let us know that you plan to be a delayed arrival. And that can be, hey, I'm going to be here Saturday instead of Friday, to give us a heads up. That way we know not to expect you on that day. You can also let us know if you don't plan to arrive during that regular move-in appointment time, or rather that move-in weekend. And maybe you're planning to arrive on that first day of classes because that just works out better for your schedule. Also totally fine. We recognize that, you know, parents, guardians, loved ones, everyone has different schedules. So we want to make sure that whatever you do select works best for you and that you just let us know. So now as you're preparing to actually move in, there are going to be certain things that we want to make sure that you have in mind and that you feel prepared for. So one of the biggest things when arriving for move-in is you do need to have your UCF ID card printed out and ready to go. There will be an opportunity at orientation to create your ID card if you go through the orientation in the summer. There's also the opportunity when you do arrive on campus prior to your move-in appointment, card services will be open, whether it's on a weekend or on a weekday. They typically have set hours around the move-in appointment times to ensure that students have an opportunity to go and have their ID card printed. So that ID card is also not just your identification as a student, but it's also your key card to get into an apartment or in some cases a bedroom space. Some communities, as was mentioned earlier, like apartment style, they have a physical hard key to be able to get into an individual bedroom, but to get into the actual apartment or the building, it uses that UCFID card, which is why it's so important to have that ready to go when you show up for your move-in appointment. In addition to preparing for move-in, we know that families and loved ones like to send kind of care packages or want to send mail ahead of time. If you want to do that, we ask that you try not to do that more than a week in advance of your move-in appointment. Those mailing addresses that will be available for the student can be found through the UCF housing portal, and it's also on our website. So each community does have a mail center, and so there is a generalized address for those that is available on the website. And so parents, loved ones, you can just address a letter or package to your student and that mailing center with that mailing address, and then they'll be able to get that package once we get in the swing of things of the semester. We also ask that before you arrive for move-in, that you review our community living guide that's on our website to get an idea of what the rules for living on campus will look like, as well as what types of things to bring and maybe what to leave at home. We have a beautiful document on our website called the packing list. And so this will hopefully allow you the opportunity to really reflect on what are some of the things that I should bring with me and what are some of the things that I should leave at home. It does specify the wattage for both microwaves and mini fridges, cubic feet measurements, all of those types of things are all on that packing list, which is available on our website for move-in. So I strongly encourage you to read through that, especially for parents. If you're looking to purchase anything for your students, for them to bring on campus, we want to make sure we set everyone up for success. That way, we're also being safe in reference to electronics and appliances that we have with everyone else in the building as well. Prior to moving in, you'll have your information about your specific space that you can find on your housing portal. That'll tell you what building and community that you're located in. So we do encourage students to get renter's insurance. It's always encouraged to protect your students' personal belongings. That way, if there is hopefully not, but maybe a thunderstorm and there is some type of water intrusion within your space and something happens to your items and it's kind of unavoidable, on our part, we want to make sure our students are prepared with that renter's insurance. There's a lot of options available. I will say many of our students use a renter's insurance for their apartments or their suites, and it's no more than like $10 a month. So it's definitely within a reasonable range for many of our students. And then finally, before arriving for move-in, we do encourage everyone to look into parking passes. They are all virtual now, so there are no hang tags, there's no sticker decals. Everything is virtual. It's tied to the license plate of the vehicle that will be brought. And those can also be purchased the day of move-in online. One other note, in terms of those parking passes, when arriving, we'll have kind of our own whole setup in terms of how to navigate around campus for move-in. And one of the biggest things to note is when parking on campus during that move-in time, our parking services is very aware that everyone is here trying to get moved in, so they really don't try to ticket during that move-in period. Once that period is over, we strongly encourage everyone to make sure they're getting their parking passes taken care of. Now you've arrived, you had your UCF ID card ready to go, you have maybe your mailing address also ready to go, you know what you want to do, you're here, you've shown up, excellent. When you arrive, there's going to be specific parking and unloading zones for each community. So on our website, you'll be able to see where each one is located for each individual community. And this is really to help ensure that the traffic on campus can flow as much as possible. So we try to minimize congestion at the check-in stations for the community offices, as well as when it comes to parking or navigating through campus. If you're not familiar at this time, UCF is like a big circle. And so we want to make sure that any of the folks who are moving in on move-in day or during that move-in time period, that we're not backed up in our traffic so much so that people aren't moving and that we're not able to move along with our process. So we have a pretty good system here, and this is just a mindful heads up for you all in terms of what to expect. So one of the things we do like to communicate with our students and families is that our move-in process is somewhat of a bifurcated process, which means that when parents and everyone else, families, guests, whomever arrives to move in, we want families and guests to unload their vehicle, get some move-in equipment, start unloading their items, and get prepared to meet their student at their room while the student themselves goes to their community office to check in. Now, this is really important because then the student is able to get access to their space. They'll get some welcome information from the RA and the community office, and then the student and the families can meet together to then proceed to continue moving in. And as I stated previously, on your housing portal, you'll be able to find your specific housing assignment and your roommate information all there available for you. I recognize that sometimes people make changes at the last minute. And so at any given time, if there are any changes, just reload your housing portal and it will show you that information right away. And then as of move-in day itself, we will have staff literally everywhere on campus, ready to give you guidance, how to get to your community office, how to get to the mail center, answering any questions that you might have. We'll also have some check-in locations, both inside the community as well as information stations or information tents that are located kind of near the parking lot or at the entrance of the community. And those areas are where you'll be able to check out different move-in equipment. You'll be able to ask any questions that you might have. And we also have a lot of wayfinders who will help you to navigate your way from the parking lot to the community office to your student's room. And so one of the things that I have heard some feedback from parents and families and guests in the past is that they really appreciate when we do have our move-in equipment, that there is no fee for this. So we provide really big, it doesn't sound great when I say it, but bins on wheels, Meals on Wheels, bins on wheels. They hold a lot of items. We also tend to have a lot of move-in ambassadors, which are essentially volunteers to help move your items for you and with you. And so those are all available to check out for free. We have a whole process for that as well. We just need to hold on to a driver's license. And yeah, that's really what our process looks like for that. We will say that, as you know, we have a lot of students who are all trying to move in at the same time. So we just ask that if you can, to bring your own move-in equipment as well, because we won't have enough for everyone. But typically for the main move-in, particularly in the fall, we do have a lot. And so we should be able to accommodate for the most part.
Okay, so in the beginning of this presentation, we talked about our choices that we have on main campus and our Rosen College of Hospitality, and I'm sure that some of you are questioning about our downtown campus. So at our downtown campus, the reason why we don't talk about it in our housing choices is because we have affiliated housing, which means that we are in very close partnership with the housing down there, but it is not UCF managed. It's managed by an outside company that owns the building, and we work very closely with them to make sure that our students are aware of that property and also, up to our standards and everything like that. So if your student is interested in living on the downtown campus, Union West Student Living is an excellent option. As I said, it's affiliated housing with UCF. What affiliated means is that there's a very simple process with students using their financial aid, Florida Prepaid, or Bright Futures in order to go towards rent. Now, that doesn't mean that any other apartments that are not affiliated or that's not an option. It is an option. This is just an extremely seamless process because of that affiliated status. So if you are in a major that is going to be held downtown, this is an excellent option. Leasing for them is open at various times, so we encourage you to look on their website, give them a call if you have any questions about that, but it is a separate process from the application process that we are talking about in this presentation. There are also shuttles for UCF students specifically that go back and forth from main campus to the downtown campus. So if your student is living on main campus and they have a class downtown, that's no problem, and vice versa if they are a downtown major but might have a class on the main campus, that is no issue as well, because they can just hop on that shuttle. So for any more information about that Union West Student Living, we definitely encourage you to visit their website and learn more about the options that they have. Everything that you should need to know is on their website. If your student, like we have mentioned multiple times, unfortunately, we do not have enough housing for everyone here at UCF. We have over 70,000 students at this university, and unfortunately, we cannot house them all as much as we would love to. So if your student finds themselves in a situation where they did not receive on-campus housing, we do have resources for finding off-campus housing. This is our website, ucf.offcampuspartners.com. It's an excellent resource. It shows rentals from, I think, over 30 apartment complexes. There's also some individual homes and condos, which is a very popular option with our students. And all of these renters appeal for students. So we do have communication. We have quarterly meetings with the properties that are on this website. And there's also a roommate matching profile. So it's only available to UCF students. You have to have a UCF email to create a roommate profile on this website. And it's for UCF students who are looking for roommates off campus. So it's just like our process. You know, it's very similar to what they're looking for, living habits, lifestyle choices, so that you can find someone who you would enjoy living with off campus. There's also some other resources on there, like if you need community transportation, like public transportation, some activities and things like that. I will say that UCF is a majority commuter school. We have over 60,000 students that live off campus and that live successfully off campus. So if you are planning to live on campus your freshman year, which is a great option, just know that in the future you will most likely need to live off campus at some point. So this is a great resource to keep in mind. If it's not relevant to you now, it will be eventually. When you do go onto this website, this is what you're going to see. So it kind of shows what's in the area. You can hover over and kind of get an idea of how close communities are to the campus. And you can also filter. The filters go really deep into so much information. So if you're looking for a specific price, you can filter by that. If you're looking for a specific building type, like an apartment or a house, you can look for that. You can click on the property, get more information. It has all of their layouts and floor plans. It has maps. It has everything that you could think of, you know, how much their parking is, how much you would be charged for utilities, anything like that. So it is an excellent resource, and I like to say it pretty much takes everything that you would Google on your own and puts it into one resource to make it easier for you. So again, this website is super helpful. I was seeing a few comments about shuttles. You can visit our UCF parking website to see a list of shuttles for where our UCF shuttles go off campus. Currently, our UCF shuttles go to 22 different apartment complexes, which is amazing. Again, they're only for UCF students to use. You must have a UCF ID to board the shuttle. But don't let that stop you from looking into other apartments as well, because we have been seeing a lot of apartments actually start providing their own shuttle to campus. So for those residents specifically at that property, they can go to campus on that branded shuttle for their apartment. So if you don't see an apartment on a list, on the UCF shuttle list, make sure to check out their individual website, because you never know, they could have their own shuttle available. Okay, so if I can get this working. There we go. So that actually concludes our presentation portion of this live stream. We have a lot of questions in the comments that we are going to get to. And if you have any questions that you were thinking of, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we are going to do our best to get to all of them. And yeah, so I'm going to get started. So this first question for Meredith, it's a bit of a doozy, but when will the LLC application be open?
Yeah, great question. And we are glad to hear that folks are interested in the living learning communities here on campus. The living learning community application process is undergoing a bit of some work behind the scenes. And so as soon as that information is available, it'll be updated on our website and then be sent out to those folks that it may apply to. So just a little bit of patience with us as we get that figured out, and it will be updated on our website as soon as we have that ready.
Awesome. This question came up a couple of times. Meredith, we can just stick with you. Can you start the tower's annual agreement in the summer?
Yeah, good question. So the short answer is no, but I will give a little bit more context to that. So the summer at UCF is a little bit, let's say complex, let's say nuanced. So there are four summer sessions at UCF for summer. So there is Summer C, which is May to August, and that is the whole summer. There is Summer A, which is May to mid-June, and then there is Summer B, which is mid-June to August. Our incoming freshmen will typically come in for Summer B because for that beginning part of summer, they are typically still in high school. And so the summer agreement at Towers covers the full summer. So it doesn't apply to those folks coming in midsummer. It is occupied by folks who started the previous fall and have that annual agreement, say from fall 23, spring 24, summer 24. So we don't have space for incoming freshmen in Summer B to start in the Towers. So if an incoming freshman for this summer or fall were to start in Towers this fall, they are committed to that annual agreement for fall, spring, and summer into 2025, which doesn't even sound like a real year when I say it out loud, but that is the agreement term. One important thing to note about the Towers annual agreement and Northview annual agreement is for that summer portion in summer 2025, you don't have to necessarily be enrolled in classes. You are committed to paying the rent if you sign that agreement, but sometimes students will use that time frame to do an internship, a job, or something else that might keep them here in Orlando, but maybe not necessarily take classes. That being said, most students at UCF do end up taking some summer classes at some point. So it is a very useful time frame to be able to get some of those requirements taken care of.
Excellent. Meredith, we're sticking with you. So this person applied for an academic agreement before their application decision for the Burnett Honors College. So it's going to be a little bit of a two-parter. Honors housing is their preferred living area, which is the Towers. How do they change their housing application to the annual application?
I feel so popular today.
I know.
Okay, so well, first, congrats on getting into the Honors College, Clara. That is fantastic. I know that is a pretty strict program admission rules, so definitely kudos to you for that. Excited to have you join us in the Towers. And yes, you can switch. What you would need to do is email us at housing@ucf.edu to request to switch your agreement from the academic year to the Towers annual agreement. Make sure that you include your name, your UCF ID, and that you want to make that switch. What we will do behind the scenes is switch it for you and then have you go back through. You'll sign a new set of terms and conditions. You will not have to make the prepayment again. That will be applied to the Towers agreement instead. Whatever you do, do not go into the portal and cancel. We can just shift it for you. And throughout the cancellation process, it says, don't do this if you just want to switch agreements, but we still have some folks who maybe panic and do that. So don't cancel. Just email us and let us know that you need to switch. Make sure you include your name and your UCF ID so we don't have to ask you that back and we have your full information. We will email you back once that change has taken place, and then you will need to follow some steps to go through and sign that new Towers agreement to make sure that is then submitted.
Meredith, can you discuss a little bit about honors housing and what exactly that is or isn't?
Sure. So the Tower 3 in the honors or in the Towers at Knights Plaza is kind of like an honors grouping for housing. Some honors students live there and some do not. It is not required for the program, but it is a great option for those who do want to live with other honors students. So what happens is students who are in honors who also apply for the Towers, they will be labeled as honors students in our system. So the Honors College sends to housing each week who has accepted their seat in honors. We label them in our system. And then during room selection, those folks who both have a confirmed Towers agreement and are labeled as honors will be able to select a room in Tower 3. It's important to note that because that is limited to honors students, you want to make sure that your roommate group is other honors students as well. Otherwise, you won't be able to select all together in the same tower. So again, it's a great option. It's wonderful for honor students who want to live together, but we know that perhaps the annual agreement is not a commitment that everyone can make, or perhaps a financial commitment you can't make. So don't feel like you have to do that. It's just an option that is available to you.
So going along with that question, this person asked, if your student is in the honors program but is only planning on the academic agreement, can they still apply for Tower 3?
Yeah, good question. Well, so congrats to on your student being in the honors program. Unfortunately, they would not be able to select Tower 3. They would have to have that annual agreement in order to select that Tower 3 room during the room selection process. However, if they've decided they would like to switch to that annual Towers agreement, they can email us to do that. But if they keep the academic agreement that they have, they'll be able to choose among Apollo, Libra, Hercules, Nike, Lake Claire, and Neptune.
And just to reiterate, we have honors students that live all around campus. It is absolutely not a requirement, like Meredith said, and they will not feel isolated from other honors students at all. We have honors students in all of our communities, which we're very lucky to have. Let's give Meredith a little bit of a break. Gordon, this person asked, if your student gets an on-campus job, i.e. working at the gym, could that guarantee on-campus housing?
Well, congratulations on that job if they get it. Woohoo! But no, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that they will have housing. So that your guarantee to get housing really is predicated on when did you apply? Did you apply as soon as you got admitted to UCF? And it really goes in that fashion. So I wish that was something that we could do, but in order for it to be fair, because there aren't enough jobs for everyone, it has to be based on the order in which you apply.
Mm-hmm. Are there any student jobs that could guarantee housing?
Well, there are some student jobs where housing would be included, and that would be if they were a resident assistant. That would be housing for them throughout either the academic calendar year or the annual year, depending on if they were a resident assistant in Towers or Northview or Rosen, or in one of our other academic communities, it would be housing during that time. However, that's generally not something that's open to our first year students coming in, because there is a credit hour requirement that you have to have at least about a year underneath your belt before you're able to really serve as a great resource for other nights. So now, if that is something that sounds interesting, just note that the application process, it sounds crazy, the application process for you to serve as a resident assistant, it's going to open up most likely in July before you even come on campus, but it would not be for this year. It would most likely be for May in 2025 would be the earliest that student would be potentially looked at, and potentially January, but just know for this coming fall, no, there aren't any opportunities for a student position that would actually come with housing. But if you do select to become a resident assistant, or in the summer serve as a conference assistant, both of those positions do come with live-in roles, and it's an amazing leadership opportunity.
And you can find more information about those positions on our UCF Housing website. Jennifer, let's throw one to you. For incoming freshmen enrolled for summer B term, what are the housing locations that they can live in?
Thank you so much, Hallie, for this question. So for any of our students who are planning to live on campus, or you're starting your semester in the summer B term, the main housing locations that you'll have available to you would include our Nike, Hercules, and Neptune locations, which we did talk about as being both suite style, and a few apartments in Nike and Hercules, as well as our Rosen at Rosen campus, or the Rosen College apartments. So during that summer B term, if anyone is maybe not familiar, that's really it's almost like in the middle of the summer, but not quite. It's like mid-June is usually when it starts, because as Meredith mentioned, there are 4 terms in the middle of in summer at UCF, and so for summer B, it's kind of the second longest one, with summer C being the entire summer, and then summer B being pretty much most of summer. And so those are the communities that are available: Nike, Neptune, Hercules, and then Rosen at the Rosen College apartments.
And sticking with some summer questions, will you receive 2 separate housing appointments? I'm assuming that they mean room selection appointments, one for summer and one for fall. Jennifer, do Do you feel comfortable answering that?
I feel like this is a great question for Meredith.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah. So good question. You will have two separate appointments for room selection. There will be a summer B room selection appointment, and those will happen in May. And then there will be a fall room selection appointment, and that will happen in June. I feel like this is probably a good opportunity to mention here that most students do not stay in the same room from summer B to fall. So it is very helpful to conceptualize summer B sort of like summer camp, other than you're attending college classes and you're really serious about those and you're studying and you're doing all those things. But do not show up for summer B with your winter wardrobe and every single decoration that has ever been seen on Pinterest and all the storage solutions that you got on TikTok. Just keep it light because you're going to move in mid-June and move right back out at the beginning of August. And then you will move into your fall room assignment about mid-August as those come around. So most students do have separate room assignments between those 2 semesters, and you will sign up for them completely separately. And then just as a slight caveat, because we haven't said this because we assume it in our minds because we live this every day. When we talk about your fall room assignment, that is for the entire agreement that you sign. So if you sign an academic agreement, that room assignment is for fall and spring. If you sign an annual agreement, that is for fall, spring, and summer. You will continue to stay in that space. For those academic year agreements in Apollo, Libra, Hercules, Nike, Lake Claire, and Neptune, you will live with us for the fall. You go home or go somewhere else during the break. You can leave your stuff in the room, but you do go home from about mid-December until early January. You come back and live with us January through May. For those annual agreements, you move in August, and you can stay in your room until that move out date the next August. So if you want to be here on New Year's Eve, you can be. We see a lot of folks go home, but you can stay in the annual agreements throughout the breaks between semesters. Also, all of our housing is open during Thanksgiving break and spring break and other holidays that are off from school. It's just those breaks in between the semesters and the academic year agreements that students leave the spaces.
Perfect. I'm going to use this question as sort of a springboard for a greater topic. So this person asked if there is a 4-4 in towers and how do they get that? I think this is a great opportunity to talk about our different options within some different communities and how to obtain those, or what there are, the ways to pick those. So Meredith, I don't know if you want to take this, or Gordon, if you want to take this, but kind of talking about those different layouts and how that works for room selection.
Sure, I'll start, and then I'll let Meredith play cleanup. Generally, our 4x4, you'll find that over at Northview. That's a very common feature that's there. Most of our spaces in towers are going to be the 4x2. I think there might be a few in towers that are 4x4. However, most of those are going to be gone when they're selected by upperclassmen. So that's why we usually don't put it on the website, because if people were to get excited, oh yeah, I'm going to find this 4x4, there's really like maybe 8 to 10 of those inside of one of the buildings. So the reality of it ever being available is pretty much nil. So Meredith, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, so you're right. There are some 4-bed, 4-bath apartments in the towers, but they are typically taken by our returning students who receive a space in the lottery. There will be some that are available for incoming freshmen, just depending on what is selected during returning resident lottery room selection. And so essentially, I see this question is asking, how do we get this? So the earlier your room selection appointment time is, the more space you will see available, because other people have not yet chosen it. So the key here is to apply for housing as soon as possible so that you can get the earliest appointment time. But all of our space is good space. And so I would say, unless you need that space for a specific medical or disability reason, don't get too super duper attached to having a specific type. We want to have you look at all of our types and kind of understand what that is. But when you do online room selection, so for example, if you are applying, if you've got a confirmed agreement in the towers and you're doing room selection, you will be able to filter down to specifically what tower. Let's say you've decided tower 1 is what you want to look at first. And if you can filter to the 4-bed, 4-baths and see if there are any available. And so that way you can pick the exact one. So let's say you find that, the 714 in Tower 1 is available and you want to sign up for it, you can pick the exact bedroom that you would be in there. So that's how that would work. So the earlier your appointment time is, the more choice that you have. but also all of our space is great space. We don't have any of those residence halls where you have, 75 folks on a floor sharing a restroom down the hall. No shade to our other institutions in the state or our country, but you're not going to be taking your shower caddy 45 feet down the hall to shower with 16 other people. You're going to be in suites or apartment style housing, which is all very nice.
So Meredith, what if, let's say, initially when ranking what spaces you want to live in, and you say, you know what, I know I want to live in towers, and you've picked to be in an annual agreement. What if the day that you have your move-in appointment, you think to yourself, I would really like to live in Northview? Are there any options? I mean, how does that work?
So in terms of room change requests, we do accept room change requests if something is available. We encourage you to stay within your agreement type because it is very difficult to continue to shift folks around. On move-in day, we're not going to have space to move people. Everything is going to be 100% full on move-in day. So that is definitely not going to be something that we'd be able to do in terms of swapping people around.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean like move-in day. I just meant like when they got their appointment to select their space. So in June, you're like, hey, all right, this is your appointment time that you can start to select your spaces. How can they maneuver inside of either the academic agreement and the annual agreement?
Yeah, so it's whatever space is available within the agreement. You don't tell us ahead of time that you want to be in Apollo within the academic agreement. You just tell us you want that academic agreement. You get confirmed for that academic agreement, and then you can choose among those communities within that academic agreement.
So when their time pick comes up, they can look at Libra, they can look at Lake Clear, they can look at Neptune, anything in the academic.
Exactly. Yep. And then our towers folks, if you're in honors, you can choose from tower 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you're not in honors, you would have choices from tower 1, 2, and 4. If you're in a Northview agreement, you would have the Northview choices, and there are several different floor plans there. If you have a Rosen agreement, you would be able to choose among the buildings at Rosen. So it is narrowed down to the type of agreement that you have, and then anything within that agreement that's still available, you would be able to select.
Awesome. I've seen this question a couple times, so I'd like to answer it. If the student was accepted for summer, but more than likely will do summer online, can they just apply for fall housing? Would anyone like to take this?
Go ahead, Jennifer.
So yes, and also I did a double take when this name popped up. I was like, Michelle Obama's attending a live stream. Oh my goodness. But thank you, Michelle Orama, for that question. You do not have to live on campus for summer B, so you can just apply for fall and leave off that summer B housing application, and nothing changes for you in terms of that fall. What I will say is if you apply for summer B housing and you don't apply for fall housing, you will receive bi-monthly reminders from us to go ahead and do that, because we find that sometimes folks do one and forget the other. However, we don't do that the other way around, knowing that this situation does come up, that folks may choose to do summer classes online and just come to campus for fall.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Jennifer or Meredith, they have Florida prepaid for 1 year dorm. Does it cover the summer, fall, and spring housing?
Yeah, so great question. If someone is able to put the link to the Florida prepaid information in our chat, that would be super duper helpful. It's on the website under application and then the financial information there. Florida prepaid typically covers fall and spring. It typically does not cover summer because it covers a certain amount, and because summer is shorter, it's not a good value to use one of your Florida prepaid credits for summer housing. You can force it to go through, and you can contact our accounting staff and they would work with Florida prepaid dorm to bill out for that semester, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. So when you indicate that you have Florida prepaid dorm, we will bill them for your prepayment and then for fall and spring rent. It covers the cost of a double or shared air conditioned room. So the cost that it will cover is whatever our cost for a Nike and Hercules shared room is going to be. So it doesn't mean that you're only limited to that rental amount of room. Any room that you pick, it will pay that amount, and then you would pay the difference if it is more. Now, you don't get a refund if it goes the other way. So, Florida likes to get their money. No, I'm just kidding. But there is information about how that works on our website. But again, fall and spring is typically what's billed for. Summer is usually not a great value for that. But if that is something you wanted to explore, our accounting team could work with you on that.
This person clarified that they were talking about roommate matching. I think this is a good opportunity to clarify that roommate matching, when it opens, it is not the same as room selection in like first come, first served capacity. So can we talk a little bit about that? And if there's a specific date and when it does open, how it's not necessarily like a race to get your roommate.
Yeah, excellent point, Hallie. It's not time dependent like the room selection would be in May and June. So I don't have a specific date that will open just yet, but it will be in February, and we will email our confirmed incoming freshmen to let them know that is available to them. And then really you have from February through May to go in there and do that searching and reach out. So don't feel like you have to, be there right at midnight when we open it to find your roommates. And the reason we wait for a little while is to make sure that we have a good group of students, a lot of students in those applications, because the more people you have to choose from, the more likely you are to find a good match. So we will reach out to you via email when that happens. You want to make sure you have that confirmed housing application, and that we will let you know as soon as that's available to you.
Yes. Jennifer, they have a completed application and have been confirmed. Is it possible to double check which building they applied to?
I'm going to take the slight nod from Meredith's head and say yes, they can. When logging into the MyUCF housing portal, that's where you'll be able to see the application that you applied for, as well as being able to review any of the housing forms that were submitted along with your application. And so that'll let you know at least what agreement type that you applied for, because we're not necessarily applying to live in Neptune, we're applying to live in an academic agreement type. And so you have a lot of options available to you for each of those agreement types, but just be mindful that although you might rank and really, really, really prefer to live in Nike, for example, it's not a guarantee that you will get into Nike or that Nike will end up being the place that you live, but rather if you're confirmed for an academic agreement type, then when you get your room selection date, then you'll be able to choose between those options based on the date that you have and what's available to you at that time. And then that's where you can check to see which buildings that you might want to select. And then from there, once you've selected that room and it's confirmed for you and you have a room, a building and a room assignment, then you can always go back and refer back to that in your MyUCF housing portal.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. The analogy that I always like to use is like room selection is like choosing a seat on an airplane. When you buy your ticket, you have your ticket, you have a seat, but then you go on and you see the seats that are still available and you see the seats that are taken. Our difference is that you don't see the ones that are taken, but what you see is what's available, and that's the rooms that you can choose from. And that goes for every building in the academic agreement, and then the annual agreements are just the buildings in those agreements. This question is referring to the roommate matching portal. Can you search by name if you maybe already know who you want to live with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So short answer is no. We want to protect people's personal information. And so you wouldn't be able to go on and search for Gordon Adams and find him as a roommate. However, when Gordon goes into his housing portal, he will see that we've assigned him a web screen name. And it's going to be a combination of his last name and some numbers so that it's not guessable, but it's identifiable for people who know him. He's going to give you that web screen name, and you will be able to search for him based on that web screen name. So that's how two folks who know each other outside of the housing portal can find one another and can form a roommate group without having to search based on those profile questions.
Awesome. I think this question, I think this is a good time to distinguish the difference between room selection appointments and move-in appointments because they are two different appointments. I know that we use the word appointments for both, but they are two separate things. So can we just clarify one more time the difference between those and whether you're assigned or you can pick?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's definitely good to delineate between those two. So your room selection appointment will be assigned for you. It is based on the time frame that you completed your housing application. So earlier housing applications will receive earlier room selection appointments. And so we will make that for you and we will send it to you, and you will know that on, say June 15th at 11 a.m. is when I can go in and select my room. Once you have that room selected, and so you're going to live in Osceola Hall in Apollo, then the move-in appointment module will become available for you in the housing portal, and you can then make your move-in appointment. So the room selection appointment is when you pick your room that is given to you by us, and then you complete that room selection. You then select your own move-in appointment, and that is when you show up to campus, as Jennifer described, to go ahead and check in and start moving your stuff into your room.
Perfect. Are there move-in times prior to sorority recruitment? Meredith, do you want to talk about the options for students that need early move-in?
Sure. There are early move-in appointments that will be available for folks who do have specific things that they need to participate in. Those are typically the Saturday and Sunday prior to regular move-in. So this is mostly what we're referring to as for fall move-in. There is no early move-in for summer B. So for fall, if you kind of count backwards, classes start on a Monday. Regular move-in starts the Thursday before that, and these early move-ins are on the Saturday and Sunday before that for sorority recruitment or marching band or other lead retreats and things like that that take place. You are billed a nightly cost for the type of room that you're in from that, say, Saturday or Sunday through regular move-in for Thursday, because you are using the space for additional time that is not included in the typical fall rent.
Perfect. Gordon, can you please talk a little bit about the safety and security that we have for on-campus housing? This person is specifically asking about a security station inside housing communities. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So first and foremost, across campus, there's about 500 cameras that are going all across this complex network. There are also hundreds of yellow towers, which are our emergency stations. They are blue lights, and they're big yellow columns. And if you touch that, not only does it have a camera that UCFPD will be able to look in and see, but they'll also be able to hear, and it has a location, so they'll know exactly where you're from. Then when you get into the communities, all of our communities have cameras. And then as far as security for getting in and out of the building, each one of our buildings, for the most part, many of our buildings will have it so that you'll need to use your ID to get into the actual building. So when you look at some of our buildings in Libra, you'll need, and some of our buildings in Hercules and Nike, you'll need to end up using your ID to swipe that ID or tap that ID, and then potentially put in your 4-digit PIN code to actually get access into the building. Then once you get to maybe even to your hallway, you might need to swipe your ID again and put in your PIN number to get access into that hallway. And then you'll need to use your ID to actually get into the room. And or suite, and potentially depending on what style of room you have, like let's say if you're in Neptune or in Lake Clear, once you get into the room, you'll need to then use a hard key to get into the actual bedroom. So the point I'm making is that there are multiple layers of security and access where people aren't going to be able to just get into your space. We do have some spaces like Apollo and Lake Clear, to where you'll need to use your ID to get into the suite of the building, but still to get into the individual bedroom, you'll either need to use your ID like an Apollo or a hard key in Lake Claire. So it's a lot of redundancy, and that's done. So that's why it's really important, as we mentioned, your UCF ID is just, it's critical for you to have. You're going to be able to make copies at the library. You'll be able to use that to get access to the games, but you'll also use that exact ID to gain access into your building, and it's verifiable with your PIN number. In the event that something happens, if you forget that, we can always help you because we can actually go in and change that if need be. But you have to make sure that you remember that, and never give that to someone else, or give someone your ID to get into your space, because that is a unique identifier, which we're then able to go back and see where was this ID used, who used it last, verify it with cameras, and that's a no-no, and that's bad for security. So just know that security is super important, and we want to make sure that everyone utilizes all of those facilities and resources to keep themselves safe.
And if I can just add, each of our communities also have a community office, which is located usually central to the building, or within a community, there's a designated location for that. And so during the day from 8 to 5, we do have full-time staff who occupy the office and kind of serve as office managers or office support assistants. And so any students that are experiencing an issue can just go straight to the office or give their main office a call. And so that's each individual community office. And then once we hit about 5 o'clock in the evening, that's when our RAs go on duty. And so they will occupy the office then from about 4:45 until about 8 o'clock at night. But then they are available straight through the next morning when that full-time staff member comes into the office. And so if a student needs any assistance with anything, they can call their community office 24/7, and someone will always answer the phone to be able to provide them with a lockout or assist them with a concern that they might have. And so our staff are trained to be able to support students in that capacity. And it is available 24/7 in regards to at least answering the phone and being available to meet them in the community office and provide them that support.
And to add on to what Jennifer was saying, those are our students. But if there's something that escalates beyond, oh, we've got a lockout or we're having a situation in the laundry room, we actually have graduate students who are working on getting their master's degrees that are on call as well, which is the next level up of support. Beyond that, we have master's level professionals that live in community and they rotate to where they're on call as well. And then we have assistant directors that are on call and they'll come to campus. So if there was a flood or if there was something or inclement weather, we have all levels of support that are available to support our entire campus and our students 24/7.
Excellent. Meredith, back to you for this one. For Libra or any shared suite, is roommate selection just for the room that you are sharing or for both rooms as well?
Oh, that's a great question, Isabella. Thank you for asking that. So that is for the entire suite. So a roommate group of 4 would be able to choose all 4 of the bed spaces within a 4-person Libra suite. So you would assign 2 people to one room and 2 people to the other. Same thing with the Nike and Hercules suites. You can assign people to each space within those 4 in the 2 rooms.
And if you don't have a group of 4, you can just go in and assign 2 spaces or just assign 1 for yourself. And then other students will be able to see that, those other 2 beds or even the other 3 beds are available. So like we said, kind of you see what's available. If you're going into room selection on your own, you can see where there's maybe someone selected 1 bed in a 4-person and you can select the other bed, or maybe 2 people went in 1 room and the other 2 in that suite are available. So maybe you only have you and a friend and you can take those 2. So it really is an easy process, no matter if you have 4 roommates or if you're on your own or anywhere in between. This is an interesting question. Do the returning lottery students or returning residents, upperclassmen, pick academic agreement rooms prior to incoming freshman academic agreement?
Wow, that's a very specific question, but good on you for getting down into the details, Shane. Hopefully, is that Shane? Yes. Okay. So yes, they do, but there are very specific rooms that our returning lottery folks can pick, and those are in the Hercules apartments in specific buildings. So they are not choosing among all of the different communities like Apollo, Libra, Neptune, Lake Claire. They are just choosing within some apartments within the Hercules community. So it is very limited down for the space that they can select. There are Hercules and Nike apartments available for incoming freshmen, but typically we keep those a little bit separate in terms of those floors.
This is also a very specific question, but just in case that there are any families of athletes on here, do athletes also have to apply for housing in the portal?
Yes. Sorry, yes. Go ahead, Meredith.
That's a great question. So we have lots of athletes and lots of different types of statuses. And so I don't want to give just a blanket here, but we do reserve space for the athletic program. And then the different coaches let us know who from their teams will be placed into those blocks of housing. So what you would want to do is make sure with your coach that you are going to be placed into that block of housing. Once we have that information from the athletic program, which is typically in July, we call activate the correct housing agreement for those athletes. We reach out to them by email and then have them go through and apply in the housing portal. So if you are not sure that you're going to be included in your team's block of athlete housing, I would encourage you to go ahead and do the application now as an incoming freshman. If later on you are on that list, we will swap you and get you into the right space to be with your team. But so if you don't know, go ahead and do it now. If your coach is saying to you, yes, absolutely, you will be part of our block, then you can wait for us to contact you in July. And then from that point, we will literally send you daily reminders to go in and sign your agreement, because we want you to get that done. So you will go into the housing portal and complete those steps that we described before, like signing the terms and conditions in DocuSign, and you'll do that throughout the housing portal. You would not pick your space. Your coach would assign the rooms and let us know who's going to be in those spaces together. So you would essentially just sign, and then your room would be chosen for you.
Awesome. We have about 7 minutes left in our live stream, so I'm going to try to choose questions that can apply for bigger populations. So if you did ask a specific question in the chat, we will make sure to answer it through our comments or reach out to you individually after the live stream has ended. That goes for anyone whose question didn't get answered today. We will eventually get to it in the comments later today. This question, oh, here we go. Does each residence hall have a community room on each floor where kids hang out, or where the RA plans floor events? Jennifer, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So each residence hall in each community is a little bit different. And so depending on the community and the general environment, some communities do have like a community room on the floor. For example, within Libra, three of the 6 buildings have what's called pod style, which means as soon as you exit your room, you're in a common area space that has some couches and tables where students can hang out with each other, and or the RA can plan some floor events or study events. And in the other 3 buildings in Libra, there's not a community space within each individual floor, because the layout of those individual bedrooms is also slightly different, and that's what would be referred to as like the L-shaped bedroom. But each community does have a larger community space, which we often refer to either as a community center or a programming center or activity center if you're in or referring to Nike or Hercules or Neptune. And so each of those individual communities do have some type of designated space. It's just not necessarily on each individual floor for each individual building. I would encourage you to take a look at the website when it comes to our floor plans, and kind of read through what the different options are and where certain things are going to be located for each of those spaces, especially as you're thinking about applying and considering where you might want to be. But just know that our RAs and our student staff, and also the department in general, does host a lot of different events. And so there's a lot of opportunities for students to engage with each other, to study with each other, to attend floor events, whether that's in a community center, on a floor, outside the building, in the courtyard, or anywhere else on campus. And so we really utilize the space that we have available to us, and our students do tend to love it. So just know that we offer a lot of different opportunities for students to get involved. And as for the community room, it does vary between each individual community. And I know you didn't ask this question, but I'm going to answer it anyway, which is the same thing goes for kitchens. So outside of our apartment style or apartments, which would be like Towers, Rosen, Northview, when looking at all of the other communities that we have, Lake Claire is also an apartment style, so they also have a kitchen in that apartment. For all of the other communities, there is a designated community kitchen, either one for the community for students to be able to engage with and cook and reserve a time and do the things that people do in kitchens. And in Neptune, there is on each individual floor like a kitchen or kitchenette available also to students as well. So again, there's information about that on our housing website. You can also give a call to the main housing line, and one of our housing ambassadors will also be able to kind of walk you through what would be available if there is a specific community that you're interested in.
I'm going to answer this question because I just think it's funny, because this person is clearly not from Florida, and we understand that, but do all the rooms have air conditioning? Yes.
Yes.
We would die. All of our residence halls have air conditioning. I believe all of the buildings on this campus have air conditioning. Once your student is here in Florida, you will understand why. This question, Florida public college students are required to complete 1 summer on campus, correct? Meredith, do you know the answer to that?
So I think what they're asking is about, there is a requirement to complete some kind of summer courses during the summer, but then there are several different exceptions to that. And I will say I am not the expert in that. Now, you don't have to live on campus for a particular summer. It's nothing to do with housing. It's more to do with a course requirement. So I would definitely refer you to the orientation that your student will be going through, that they will give you more information on that, specifically during the academic advising sessions where they will go over that. But I don't want to tell you the wrong thing in case any regulations have changed.
Yeah. I did see a question. Sorry, I'm trying to find it again. I just lost it. Oh, when will the rates for fall 24 and spring 25 be released? I don't know if anyone knows that.
We don't have a specific date for that yet, but as soon as they are released, they will be available on our website, which, oh, look at that. That's so fancy, the little scrolling thing. So that would be the website where you can find those. You can see our current year's rates. And typically we don't go up any more than 4 to 5% from year to year. So that helps you to sort of do the math and factor that in as you're looking at rates for next year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to do one final question and then we will conclude. So I know some people joined late, but we did get this question a few times. Can I watch this from the beginning later? Is it recorded? Yes, you will be able to watch this presentation in its full entirety. It will be available on our Facebook and also on our YouTube. I believe we will also post it on our website somewhere to help those that weren't able to attend today. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to spend some time going through these comments and making sure that all of your questions are answered if we did not get to them live. All of this information can be found on our website. We basically just took our website and put it into a presentation. So I know it's a lot of information, but hopefully this video helps to have it a little bit more conversationally. And as always, we are always here as a department to answer any of your questions. You can call our phone or email us. We answer the phones between the hours of 9 and 5, correct, Meredith and Jennifer? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure we have an amazing team. Meredith and Jennifer's team is dedicated to answering those phone calls and emails every single day. If we don't get back to you right away, please give us some time. I'm sure they can attest we get thousands of emails, and they do their absolute best, and they're great at responding. So
Hallie,
if you do, yes?
So right now I'm going to teach the audience a way that they can remember the UCF phone number.
Oh,
and
yes.
Never forget it. Okay. So 407-823-4663. If you look at your phone, 823 spells UCF and 4663 is home. So UCF home. That's the phone number. Look at that. Right there. You'll never forget it because
absolutely,
this is where home is.
Yes. If you are planning to attend any of our open houses in this spring, for the one this weekend is for prospective students. The ones in March and April are for admitted students. You can find more information about that through the admissions website. We will be there. We will have a room where you can ask us questions. We will have tables available, and we will be showing some of our residence halls that are available with tour rooms currently that don't have students living in them. And then for all of the admitted students, we will be giving presentations and be tabling as well at any of your orientation dates. So we are here for you all the time between now and until your student graduates. So we thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to attend this live stream. Again, call us or email us if you need anything, and we hope to get to all of the comments that were put in the chat, and we hope that you all have an excellent rest of your evening. And as always, go Knights, charge on. Thank you.